There are places on Earth where the air itself feels thin, like reality's stretched too far, and something else is bleeding through. War zones push men to their breaking point, physically, mentally, and sometimes, if you ask a few old hands, spiritually. There are stories whispered between soldiers, late at night in the dark between shifts, in tents where the generators hum can't quite drown it out. Stories about the unlucky and the unfathomable, about voices echoing from empty trenches, figures walking across minefields nobody ever cleared, and brothers in arms who disappear only to return hours or even years later, carrying scars you can't see and a look in their eyes that says they know something the rest of us don't. Tonight, you'll hear 5 true, or at least claim to be true, accounts that walk the line between the world of the living and something we can't name. Stories that fester like old wounds. This is Warlogs. Before I get started, I want to say, there's a rule we used to joke about in my unit. Never trust the dead to stay put. Sounds ridiculous, until you've spent enough time clearing the same ground, turning up the same ghosts. I heard a retelling of this years ago from a Marine, a guy whose hands still trembled when he lit a cigarette. During the Fallujah offensive in 2007, clearing buildings was a brutal, methodical task. Squads moved block to block, room to room, often finding remnants of insurgents, civilians, and the carnage left behind by days of airstrikes. But one squad's sweep of a half-destroyed apartment complex uncovered something that wasn't just tragic. It was impossible. We were clearing buildings in Fallujah, block by block, floor by floor. Breathing through your shirt against the grit in the air. Every shadow wavered. Every echo sounded half like Arabic, half like English, and always too loud. This was our 3rd day inside the city, 3rd night without a real sleep, and the kind of tension that thrums behind your ears. We were working low on everything. Sleep first, ammo not far behind. Even tempers, which is a kind of supply all of its own. Our squad got ordered to sweep a 3-story apartment block that had been partially collapsed by an airstrike the previous night. The intel said there were likely bodies inside. That was normal. But in Fallujah, normal covers a lot of ground most folks never walk. From street level, what was left of the building looked like a broken jaw. All shattered concrete and snarls of rebar. The street outside littered with cinder block shards, burned couches, bits of rope. Coil, it's always coil. Told us to keep it tight and trust no corner. I remember the sunlight catching motes of dust as we breached the entryway. The upper levels were choked with debris and shattered glass. But the lower level, especially the basement, was sealed up, probably shielded by a collapsed stairwell. We moved down anyway, boots crunching on broken tile, flashlights cutting pale circles through the dust. Down there, the air felt wrong. Wet, heavy, metallic. Half the guys switched their NVGs on, but all we got was static fuzz. A sizzle in the earpiece that set nerves on edge. Something about the air. Maybe the wiring, maybe worse. We had to go with white lights. You never want to walk into a pitch-black room in a city like that, not knowing whether it's insurgents or worse. So we were moving shoulder to shoulder, calling out U.S. troops coming through, and tapping walls. The light catches shapes before your brain registers what you're seeing. Sometimes it's furniture, sometimes it's not. That's when we found him, sitting in the back corner where the shadows stuck thickest. A guy in U.S. Army fatigues, everything in regulation order. Boots laced, helmet strapped, M4 across his lap, gear stacked by the book. My first thought was that he was alive, maybe catatonic, maybe in shock. We called out, "Hey, you all right? Identify yourself." Nothing but the drip of water somewhere behind the walls. Coyle went in first, hand out, trying to coax some response. "You good, man? What unit you with?" Still no movement. So Coyle did what soldiers do. He tapped the shoulder, and the guy just came apart. Not like in the movies, and not like a body falling down. Skin sloughed off in ribbons, the jaw clacked loose and hit the floor, and a scent hit us that doesn't leave your nostrils for days. Underneath, everything was rotten. Advanced decomposition, tissue falling away like he'd been soaking in a river weeks. But the uniform? Not a speck of dirt. No stains, just clean pressed camo as if he'd put it on that morning. We backed out, fast, but not screaming. Trained reflex. Someone called it in. Command sent in a recovery crew with full suits. But here's what they told us at debrief. The ID tags, they ran the name. Specialist Aaron M. Cole. Declared KIA, Fallujah, 3 years earlier, in 2004. But this was 2007, and the report said he died across town in a blast that supposedly scattered his unit. There were no signs of new entry in that room. No breach, no tampering, no note left behind. Somebody on the recovery team joked it must have been a prank. Nobody else laughed. That night, eventually alone in my bunk, I scrolled through my phone. One new photo, time-stamped 10 minutes before we entered the basement. Blurry, but clear enough to recognize the face. Specialist Cole, uniform pressed, helmet on, sitting against that chipped wall, staring straight into the lens, smiling. A lot of soldiers get superstitious about sounds at night, especially in places far from home. Overseas, regular rules don't always apply. What's weird is how often the same stories crop up. Knocking, whispering, something begging to be let in. Maybe it comes from sleep deprivation, or maybe there's more to it. This next account came through an after-action report, written up like it was just another day at the job. But nobody on that deployment really believed it was over. This happened at a remote outpost in northern Syria. A squat concrete skeleton built on bare earth. Sand and silence for miles in every direction. There's something about those places that amplifies small noises into something enormous. No birds, no dogs, just the wind, the creak of steel, and the faint whine from the comms tent generator. We rotated recon teams through this ruin, using the old offices for a make-do barracks and the main floor as a combined comms center. Nights passed slow, hours measured more by watch changes than time on a clock. One night, my shift on Overwatch was nearly done. The crescent moon barely lit the scrub outside the wire. The rest of the team bunked in, writing emails, cursing the food packs, catching restless little pieces of sleep you only get at war. Suddenly, sharp, 3 knocks. Right on the thick steel door, loud enough to echo through the hallways. No voices, no code word, just knock, pause, knock, pause, knock. My first thought, one of the newer guys got themselves locked out, or someone was screwing around. I grabbed the radio. "Command, did we set a foot patrol outside perimeter?" Static, then a clipped reply. "Negative. All personnel accounted for inside." A minute ticked by like an hour. The same 3 knocks. Perfect rhythm. I swung the door open, rifle at the ready, flashlight washing across the empty dirt yard. No one. I stepped out, scanning for footprints. Nothing. Not even scuff marks over the dust the wind would have half covered. My heart was going a little too fast for comfort. Next day, I told myself it was probably wind, maybe a loose pipe knocking in the frame. But you talk yourself into believing whatever lets you sleep. Except 2 nights later, 3 knocks again. Same door, same timing. This time, before my shift, we set up a motion sensor outside the entrance. A leftover from a supply drop, military issue but janky. The system chirped when armed, a little red light blinking against the sandbag by the frame. Just after midnight, knock, knock, knock. Everybody froze. Motion sensor silent. No alert, no spike. We were all inside, all awake. That 3rd night I waited, phone in hand. The knocking set nerves on edge. When it started, I yanked the door fast, raising my camera to snap whatever was outside. No one. But in the photo, across the floodlit yard, was a shape that hadn't been there a moment before. A man. Standing at the compound's far wall, pale as drifted ash, shirtless, but wearing issued combat boots. Head turned away from the camera, hands by his side. Some of the others saw, just for a split second, a shadow twisting by his feet, like smoke curling off a fire. I blinked, and he was gone. I went over the fence line with another guy, checked for movement, boot prints, even heat with the flare. Nothing showed up. Nobody slept easy for the rest of the tour. A few weeks later, swapping stories under a flickering lantern, our Syrian translator heard the knocking tale and went quiet. He said, very soft, "There is a story, old one, from Soviet time. Soldier who died during the invasion. He finds lonely places. He knocks to be let in. But if you answer and open the door while he faces you, you do not come back." He refused to translate the rest. I wiped the photo that same night, just to be safe. I've heard versions of this knocking story in more than one place. Afghanistan, back in old barracks in Germany, even from a buddy posted in Alaska's wilderness. There's something universal about it. How isolation and suspense twist every noise into a warning. I remember talking to a retired infantry sergeant who swore by always pausing before opening a door at night, no matter how routine it seemed. "Call it a trick of the mind, or something else," he told me. "But you never want to be the first one to answer when the unknown comes knocking." Sometimes the superstitions are there for a reason, even if you can't quite admit why. Every unit picks up rumors about strange replacements, troops who arrive out of nowhere, their paperwork just a little too clean. Sometimes it's bureaucratic mix-ups. But sometimes, those stories take a turn that never shows up in official reports. This one's from a vet who served as a peacekeeper in Bosnia. He never embellished his stories, not once. But this, he only ever said it twice, and always after a bottle was already half gone. The war in Bosnia was unlike any other, quiet in some places, volatile in others. Many of the NATO troops who served there still refuse to talk about what they saw in those ghost towns nestled deep in the hills. Raises the question, what if some of those towns were never truly empty? Their unit had secured a small village tucked between wooded hills, abandoned for years, maybe longer. Roofs caved in, furniture turned to moldy pulp, fields overrun with thorn and wild grass. From the outside, it felt like the kind of place the world had forgotten on purpose. Windows shot out, soccer ball grayed and crumpled where some kid's foot left it decades earlier. They were set up for 2 weeks of patrol. The only people they saw were scavengers, sometimes. Gray-haired farmers drifting through on tiptoes. The mood was always uneasy. Then, one morning after a rain that left the roads thick with mud, 2 soldiers showed up at checkpoint. Black hair, regulation boots, faces drawn and serious. They introduced themselves as part of a recon detachment. Their transfer papers checked out on first glance. Stamped, official, in the right format. They gave matching last names and working radios, carried rifles in immaculate condition, packs squared away just so. For days, nothing felt off, except maybe small things. The way they kept to themselves at meals, silent, or how they always seemed alert, even off shift. Most guys unwind eventually. These 2 never did. But for all that, they did the grunt work. Pulled their guard shifts, swept the perimeter, shared a cigarette if offered, but always carefully accepting, never asking. One night my brother caught them outside the makeshift mess tent. It was raining again, cold, bouncing off the tin roof like static. He tried to break the tension with a joke. One of them just nodded, the motion too slow. My brother swears their helmets never left their heads, not even in the sleeping quarters. Boots stayed laced. There's something off about soldiers who won't break uniform, even after 12 hours on post. Oddest detail came a week in. Someone caught one of them peeling gloves off to eat, and his fingers looked wrong. Too white. One missing a nail, but not blood or fresh injury, just a smooth surface, almost as if the skin had never finished forming. My brother said you could feel the temperature drop when you stood next to them, like standing beside a running fridge. He got jumpy, started quietly asking around. Nobody recalled seeing them arrive. No vehicles reported in or out. The S2, admin officer, promised to check the transfer orders. The very next morning, the 2 of them were gone. Cots made, boots polished and aligned under the frame. Not so much as a strand of hair left behind. But on the blackboard in the common area, where the squad rotated night shifts, was a note. Neat, block printing, the sort you learn in basic. We were never here, neither were you. The chalk felt cold, even through the gloves. Everyone has stories about getting lost in the woods. But for soldiers, especially on exercises far from home, there's a special kind of unease that can creep in after midnight. I heard this one from a Canadian vet I met in a chow tent in Latvia. He told it soft, with a look that said part of him was still back there, listening for things that don't make noise. Military training operations in the Baltic region are known for being grueling. Cold nights, unfamiliar terrain, and endless tree lines that all start to look the same after a while. But during one multinational NATO drill, a soldier went missing for 4 days without explanation. When he came back, the real questions began. He'd been part of a NATO exercise, wooded borders outside a Baltic town nobody could pronounce, where the mist hung low and the pine needles muffled footsteps. The rules were simple. No live ammo, no actual hostiles, just forces pretending to be the enemy. They'd patrol, find simulated objectives, and practice radio calls. On the 3rd night, Grant, the youngest in the squad, drew navigation duty. It was supposed to be easy. Check a waypoint, ping GPS, wait for pickup. A green chemical glow stick flickered at his belt. radio clipped to his vest, boots still muddy from the day before. But somewhere between checkpoints, Grant missed a turn. The pine forest grew thicker, moon drowned by high clouds. The usual chorus of bugs and distant birds just vanished. When Command tried to check his location, Grant's voice came over the net, thin and far away. "Yeah, I'm here. Hold on. I think I see." His words faded out, replaced by a whisper, like someone speaking too close to the receiver. Squad lead told him to stay put, activated his last GPS ping, and 2 men set out, boots squelching through moss. The place they found was like something out of a painting. Helmet set neatly atop the mossy boulder, radio and earpiece laid out in strict parade ground order. Boots wiped clean, toes aligned, zip cuffs coiled in a spiral with uniform precision. No footprints but their own. No Grant. They searched all night, calling his name, light sliding across tree trunks, breath freezing at the edge of the clearing. By morning, nothing but birds returned. On the 4th day, when hope was sourest, Grant walked back into the compound, uniform spotless, face blank as a fresh page. No memory of what happened, no bruises, no scratches on his boots. Medical cleared him. Heart, brain, pupils, all normal. Just numb. Everyone tried to move on, back to duty. That night, just before lights out, one of the older guys, Rogers, stepped out to smoke and saw a familiar figure standing in the woods just beyond the floodlights. Same build as Grant, same stance, just watching. Rogers called out. No answer, no movement. Seconds later, behind him, Grant came out of the mess, tray in hand, asking what was up. When Rogers looked back, the figure by the trees was already gone. Stories about people or things quietly watching from the tree line come up in almost every army I've talked with. One Latvian conscript told me he used to see shapes between the pines that never showed in daylight. And a Polish officer once admitted he still dreams of lost recruits who return changed after a night in the woods. Maybe it's the way the forest can play tricks on your senses. Or maybe, after long enough out there, you start to understand that not everything that watches is meant to be seen. Whatever the reason, it's these moments that stick with you, years after the tour is done. Over in Germany, every unit rotates through enough bases to rack up their own tally of places where the lights flicker a little too often, or where dispatches run a chill down your neck for no good reason. This building in Hesse was officially abandoned. But in the stories, something still lived there. Every base has that one building no one wants to sleep in. For NATO forces stationed in southern Germany, it's an old barracks near the edge of a forest. Still standing, still functional, but long since emptied. Why? Because too many soldiers came out of it with stories, and some didn't come out at all. The old barracks sat on the edge of base. 3 stories of gray, sun-bleached brick, windows dark, blinds stuck at odd angles. Every few months, some unit tried to bunk there, always with an attitude. Prove it's just ghost stories. This time, it was a mixed group of NATO troops with a week between assignments. Heat was out. Most of the electrical grid, too. Candles and glow sticks lit the tiled hallways. Laughter echoed down open corridors, the bravado you get before stories have teeth. First night passed with nothing but restless sleep and jokes about German ghosts and spooky ration stew. Second night, somebody heard it first, lying on a bunk in the deep dark. Dots and dashes, faint like a shortwave set. Dot dot dash, dot dash dot. At first, everyone thought it was comms from a nearby post, but an ex-signals guy, Dutch, wrote it down out of habit. Next morning, he translated the Morse. Just one German phrase, Kameraden gefallen. That's when they lost the bravado, second-guessing everything. Cold spots, shifting shadows, doors that wouldn't stay closed. On the third night, 2 soldiers woke up screaming, faces drenched, hands clutching at the sheets. Said they'd seen figures watching from beside their bunks, uniforms with high collars and spiked helmets. Faces pale and unreadable. Waupu German ghosts, they muttered. But not like any movie specter, just sad. Not menacing, just silent witnesses. Other troops searched the building, windows still locked, all doors secure from the inside. When the squad packed up at sunrise, the youngest in the group, an American with a baby-fat face and a new scar just healing, found something stuffed deep in his sleeping bag. A folded, yellowed envelope, brittle with age. Inside, a black and white photograph. A group of soldiers, arms slung over each other's shoulders, beaming in some long-lost sun. 1940s uniforms, caps crooked, one man in the middle, looked just like him. Same eyes, same birthmark, scar on the cheek, in the very same place. He didn't sleep the rest of the deployment. A lot of them didn't. War always leaves a mark. Sometimes it's on the body, plain as a scar. Sometimes it cuts deeper, beneath the skin, into what we carry with us. Places, memories, things we saw when the world slipped sideways and reality wore thin. Maybe these stories are fiction, just bad jokes passed down until the truth got lost. Or maybe sometimes, the ones who've seen those places can't quite tell the difference anymore. That's for you to decide. This is Warlogs. Stay alert out there. And more than anything, stay alive. Thank you guys so much for all the support on my videos. It means a lot. If there are any fellow vets out there with similar eerie stories, let us know in the comment.